What's the vibe, y'all? Welcome to another episode of Running Off the Screen. I'm the man they call Mac, and I am joined by a good friend and the host of the Live by the Three podcast, available where your favorite streaming platforms are. Curly.
What's going on, good people? Mac, thank you as usual for bringing me on, brother. It's been a long time. I can't wait to get into it.
Yeah, it's a lot to talk about, and the first topic I wanted to get into is OG Anunoby. Now, we have been critical of OG, but he's making me eat my words right at this moment, and it's great to see. I don't care that I'm wrong. It's actually great that I'm wrong about what I thought he was going to be. Going into the season, we all wanted him to become that defensive force that we know he could be. Getting healthy was a big component to him getting to that point. So he's getting the recognition. So do you think he's more likely to get the Defensive Player of the Year recognition or be an All-Star? What one of those two things you think is going to be in OG's future?
Before I get into that, yes, let's clear the air. Yes, you and I have been awfully critical of OG, but I think it was deservingly so. I think our biggest issue is we saw levels to his game that wasn't very consistent. And when he's having an off game, what else are you going to do to be impactful? Now he was getting a few rebounds and maybe a steal here or there, but he wasn't quite locked in as he is currently this season. And I love to be proven wrong too. And I always admire a player that is giving it to you on the defensive side of the basketball, because it seems to be a lost art these days. But that is a mentality, that is an approach that you have to decide. Not everybody is a good defender, but everybody can become a good defender. In OG's case, he's definitely been a consistent defender, but there was always that missing component. And I think he's figured it out, that I can do whatever I want on defense. I can take gambles in the passing lanes and still react to if the ball is swung onto the opposite side. Like, he has the athleticism and the physical attributes to do a little bit of everything. Not to mention, a very underrated part of his defense is his shot blocking at the rim. He's come through with some absolutely disgusting blocks that he probably had no business doing. But I think all that we are seeing right now, it's him being healthy. Mm-hmm. Knock on wood. But going to the question, I think Defensive Player of the Year is much more likely. I don't think there's anyone else in the NBA right now that is playing as good a defense and playing better defense than OG Anunoby is right now. All-Star, we know what that's like. The fan base, and then you got the coaches. They always go for the sexier player, quote unquote. But I think OG is pleading his case for both, as being one of the premier two-way players in the league. But I can't think of anybody playing better defense than OG right now. I know the NBA Defensive Player of the Year ladder has Giannis up there still, Rudy Gobert, even Marcus Smart, and I think that's more of a respect thing. However, OG is forcing them to recognize his game. He's forcing them to put respect on his name, and I'm a big believer in manifestation. OG said he wanted to be Defensive Player of the Year, and you're seeing all the attributes, all of it come together right now, and I think it's beautiful to see, man.
Yeah, and I agree. Like, it's pretty close as far as Defensive Player and All-Star, but you are right. They go for the quote unquote sexier pick, the guy who's hitting game winners, flashy. But yeah, in one of my group chats, my boy EA, he posted a tweet from NBA Central, and it was showing OG's opponents like the last 5 games, and it was Donovan Mitchell, he shot 2 for 7. Luka Doncic shot 5 for 12. with 2 turnovers. Kevin Durant 2 for 6. DeJounte Murray 1 for 5. Jimmy Butler 1 for 4. And OG on top of all of that is averaging 2.4 steals a game, 3.8 deflections, 1.4 loose balls recovered. These are all leading the league or up near the top. And you mentioned the other candidates like Marcus Smart and Giannis, but Brook Lopez as well has been getting a lot of buzz for what he's been doing. He's been pretty elite at contesting at the rim. I think he averages just under 18 shot contests at the rim a game, which is insane. And to put that in perspective, OG is only averaging 7, but or just total shot contests. But OG is not a center, so you wouldn't expect him to be up there with it. But yeah, OG being Defensive Player of the Year makes a lot more sense, especially when you talk about Brook and Giannis. Those guys are on the same team, and with Giannis, there might be some voter fatigue. You know, he's already collected a lot of accolades, and that can help OG's case. And I also wanted to mention a play on Monday against the Cavs where OG, he put the clamps on Mitchell, then he forced the kick out, and then his teammate, I think it was Boucher, ran the shooter off the line, and then the shooter was attacking the rim, and then OG slides over, contests the shot at the rim, jogs down the court, and then hits a transition 3. Now, if you ever wanted to describe to, like, say an alien comes down to you and they ask you what a 3-and-D player is, just show them that clip and just say you're welcome, because that was the epitome of what a 3-and-D player does for you in the NBA. Now, our roster's starting to get a little bit healthier, which is great to see. But do you feel content with our rotation, and more specifically, our guard rotation?
I think this was a problem going into this season. You and I have talked about this in nauseum, that when you take off Fred VanVleet, the fall off is very significant. Now, in our role players' defense, like Delano Banton, he's shown flashes, and he also had that big game where he scored 27 points, and we needed it from him. But the guard rotation is not very good, and a lot seems to fall on Nick Nurse's shoulders when it comes to that. But what do you want him to do with the current players? You know, I think that's more of a front office problem. You're only as good as the players you are given, you know what I mean? And I'm not let me be clear. I love the rotation guys. I love their stories and how they come about. A lot of them have earned their roster spot, and I do not want to downplay that. But when you look at Fred, the backup PG is either Delano Banton or Malachi Flynn. You take off Gary Trent Jr., who's second best, or you can say 1A, 1B to Fred as being the best shooter on this team. We're not getting that shooting coming off the bench from a Justin Champagnie or anybody else for that matter. Now, keep in mind, I do want to see more of Jeff Dowden. I think he's deserving of a little bit more minutes. He's a great defender. He's very steady in the half court. He doesn't really force things, where Malachi and Delano play more at a frantic pace. So I think, especially where we struggle in the half court offense, that somebody like Jeff Dowden and his skill set, it could prove to be beneficial. But beyond that, it's just such a mixed bag. It's, for every good, there's a bad for every player. But I still think that if you're going to take off Gary Trent and Freddie at the same time, we do not have the guards to give us not just the shooting, but the level of production that those guys give us on a consistent basis. I know Gary Trent is struggling a little bit, but we've seen him at his peak, and he, excuse me, he can take over a game. I don't really see any of the guys coming off the bench taking over a game.
Yeah, and when you think about our guard rotation, it's really just a point forward rotation, right? It's either Scotty's running the point or Pascal's running the point if it's not Freddie.
Even Thad has
Thad
proven to
too.
be a decent a decent point forward, right?
Yeah, once they get in the half court, they really like to play through Thad in that high post area, mid post area, like you said earlier, like a Marcus Gasol type. I think it was off camera we were talking about that.
Yeah, it was off camera, but yeah,
But
he assumed that Marc Gasol type role, and it's given our half court offense such a boost that a lot of players are able to play off the ball, and it's great to see.
yeah, and you said Jeff Dowden, like he would be a great addition, I guess. As far as playing on and off ball, I think he flows a little bit better than Delano or Malachi in the sense that he's good. He's good off ball. He's very instinctual with where he's cutting and where he's picking up players off ball defense, like help defense. So I can see why he's considered there. But we just need a guard, I think, with a killer mentality. We just need one that can just go down, attack mismatches, create something out of nothing. I think once we have nothing, we just have nothing. There's nobody who's gonna save us in those half court sets where it's just scrambling around, right?
We have Kem Birch getting the ball in the high post and asking him to to play bully ball.
Yeah, and look how that's worked, you know. So, and I guess the answer to that issue of having a guard off the bench who wants to score is Nurse experimenting and putting Gary Trent Jr. off the bench. I don't know how he would feel about that. I guess it doesn't matter how he feels. The coach says what he's going to say. Do you feel we're kind of picking on Gary a little bit too much?
I don't feel we are picking on Gary Trent Jr. as in you and I, but I do feel that he's the lightning rod this season. And I find it very interesting that he is the one that everybody is focusing on this year. And it could be the idea of it being a contract year and players are supposed to elevate their game, and or he's trying to essentially prove his worth. But I think he proved his worth last season as the team battled through injuries, and especially in the second half of the season, it was literally Pascal and Gary Trent leading the way on the offensive end. And he had those string of games where he put, I think it was 6 to 8 games where he put 30 points in.
Yeah, it was
like
crazy.
that,
Crazy.
Yeah, that was an insane stretch, and he did it all with jump shots. This season, he's doing a little bit more. All the things that he was getting knocked on last season in terms of getting to the free throw line, becoming a better facilitator in the half court or even in transition, to be needing to be a better rebounder. He's doing all those things right now, and I truly believe that he's going through an adjustment period. It's clear that he's battling something physically, and I think we should take all these things into consideration. These guys aren't machines, you know. They're human, and they're gonna have feelings, and they can feel sick. You know, I know they're professional athletes, but they're not invincible. Even though at times we definitely see them in that light. But in Gary Trent's case, it's just unfortunate. I don't see him being on the bench long term. We've seen this movie before, and I've said it last season, and I've said it multiple times on my platform as well, that it's not a good look for him. Yes, he brings a stability to our bench that is very much needed. I just don't feel, since he became a Raptor, he's elevated his game, that he should be the one to, you know, take it on the chin and come off the bench just because there's a little bit of hesitancy on our front offices. And I don't know. I'm very concerned as to where things are going. And I think you said it best, that he doesn't really have much of a choice. But last night, he looked comfortable. He looked like there was a weight lifted off his shoulder. He played with a little bit more freedom. But I think a lot of that is the Pascal effect. Mm-hmm. Pascal brings that calmness and brings that stability that allows responsibility. And even for OG had a very efficient game as well. But I think it's because Gary Trent and OG had less responsibility. And I think that's where you're going to see them elevate their game, because this team is healthy. It's just, I don't know. I don't know what they want Gary Trent Jr. to do.
And even Scotty, they brought him up. He didn't seem too happy about that after.
No, you can tell he was very, very upset. But I think as a young player, it's a humbling experience. Hopefully, he'll take it in a positive light. But yeah, after the press conference, it didn't look good.
Yeah, this is Nick's way to motivate his players, showing them that they are expendable. We're going to compete with or without you. So I don't know. He's kind of like telling them, hey, how badly do you want to be in this rotation? Which area of the floor are you going to be consistent for me to trust you and make you force me or force you into the game, right? But I don't know if that's going to work. That's going to work with a lot of players. But it did work with one player that we're going to talk about next, Juancho. Have you seen him make enough of an impact to get a consistent role once this team is fully healthy? And when I say fully healthy, when Achua's back in the mix.
Respectfully, can you identify him by his real name, and that's Bo Cruz, please?
Oh,
Thank
I'm
you
sorry.
We talked about it a lot when they signed Juancho. We wanted them to go after a guard, the Malik Monks. While the price point was not going to be the same, but Malik Monk, Kevin Huerter to an extent, even a Bruce Brown, we were looking at those type of players, and to see them just come back with Juancho Hernan-Gomez, we were both questioning it, but a little bit more intrigued. And I was a little bit more optimistic than you were at that time. And I'll admit, when he first started to get consistent minutes, I was like, oh gosh, this is just awful. he looked like he didn't belong. He really looked out of place. Maybe to an extent how Svi Mykhailiuk looked at times last season. It was not good. But as the games went on, you saw little flashes. And it started with his defense. And, no surprise, the Raptors are a defensive-minded team. And you saw a little bit more effort on that side of the ball. You saw him hustling for more rebounds. You saw him boxing out. In transition, you saw him getting into the corners and making those attempts. The shots weren't falling, but you can tell he was starting to get into the flow of things. Fast forward to the last few games, he looks comfortable. Mm-hmm. He looks like he belongs. And I think that's part of the component of getting the opportunity to do so, the opportunity to work through those mistakes. And he responded well. Now he's looking for those jump shots. There was a possession last night where he got beat from the point of attack, and both him and OG collapsed. I think they awarded Juancho with the block. You wouldn't have seen that in the beginning of the season. And I think he's making it very difficult for him not to get playing time in the future. And I covered it in the reaction pod. Not to mention that Thaddeus Young and Juancho have a bit of a connection going on, where Thad is in the high post, no surprise there, and Juancho has the ability to play off the ball. So here you have a 6'8", 6'9" forward fitting the Raptors' vision that can bring up the basketball. We saw that last night. Can shoot, can grab rebounds, and finish around the rim. I think the Raptors are developing a good problem to have in the forward spot. But to your point, what does that mean for Precious? How's that going to look going forward? Are you going to go with a giant lineup of Boucher, Thad, Juancho, and Precious? Not a whole lot of shooting and a whole lot of ball handling there. I mean, maybe Thad could be that point forward, but I think it's a necessary problem, because I think we were always wondering where that extra boost was going to come off the bench, and seeing that Young can provide that boost. We see what Chris Boucher has been doing since he got back, and he's allowed to have a bad game, but he had 3 straight games with double-double. and we've seen Precious come off the bench and be the spark plug in combination with Boucher, and now you have somebody like Juancho. It seems like it's only our forwards that are propelling in the upwards direction, but I also feel it's necessary at this time. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. Like early on, yes, I was not a believer because I thought we just needed another guard, someone who can come in and score. And I liked what I saw from Josh Jackson. And I thought he wasn't getting, and even Gabe Brown, I thought that shooting would have been very crucial for us. But
I thought Gabe Brown was a shoe-in, to be honest.
yeah,
I really did.
And then when we gave him the guaranteed deal, before he even was able to compete for the spot, I was kind of like confused. But I see what they're doing here. I see that they're trying to get players who have instincts. They're not totally just going for the athletic highlight reel, like shot blocking, just big play guys. They're looking for the guys that do the little things. Again, I use this term a million times, that connector piece. They're just looking for more connectors until those guys, like their top core players, become the finishers at the end of those connection plays. And you're seeing that with OG now, right? He's becoming a finisher. Pascal, he's been top 5 status all year. And Fred, he's been killing it from 3. So you need those players that are going to get those guys there in their spots, do the dirty work. And I think Juancho's starting to understand that, and he's been doing a great job being effective in that role. Now the roster, I'm starting to see the vision, but it just feels like something is missing. So I'm wondering, do you think there's a trade out there, a realistic trade that the Raptors could do to kind of up their competitiveness in the Eastern Conference?
We've said it multiple times, and I'm going to say it again. We need a guard. Not necessarily a shooting guard, but we need a scoring guard. Somebody that can come off the bench and keep pressure on the defense. I feel at times when we're really struggling, and you mentioned this in one of your episodes, that when everything is clicking, the Raptors look great and the problems aren't really highlighted. But when we are struggling, the problems are really, really evident. And one of the biggest problems is the lack of guard play, as we mentioned earlier on in this episode. In terms of a realistic option, I think it's very limited with the amount of money that we have and what we would have to give up to get some of these players. There's been many names that these experts have suggested. Terry Rozier was one of them, which I thought would be very interesting, going back to the small point guard backcourt again. But if I'm looking at a realistic trade option, and you and I have talked about this, Nickeil Alexander-Walker off Utah, I think he would be a great addition to this rotation. He's not getting much playing time. We've seen when he gets the opportunities, I believe it was in New Orleans last year, where he had like 5 games in a row of 20 points. And I think one of them was a 30-piece. Not to mention that there's a Nick Nurse connection with him on Team Canada. And I was fortunate enough to see them play in Hamilton. And you really saw that Shai and Alexander Walker was really being leaned on, and Nick Nurse was constantly in their ear. And he responded. The ability to, and the athleticism that he has to get to the rim, not to mention has the ability to hit the outside shot. He's just perfect. He's just perfect for our bench. And I think it's also, when you have somebody like that, it's going to open up opportunities for the guys around him. Like Delano Banton's not going to have all that pressure to be ball handling all the time. He's not going to have to be the one that's constantly putting pressure on the defense. Same with Malachi Flynn, if he's still with the roster. I know they exercise his option. Who knows what's going on there? But if I'm looking at a trade piece right now to get a player like that, I would even consider packaging him with a pick if it means that we can get a player and salaries match. I think that $6 million of Khem Birch might be the one to go. It's unfortunate because when Khem Birch did get here, you saw what he was bringing, and it was something that we needed. Now we have multiple guys doing the same thing, and unfortunately for him, and it's not a knock against him, he's struggling with health quite a bit. And I think right now the Raptors should kind of shy away from relying on healthier players and find some more dependable pieces, and a young guard who's not getting playing time. I'm sure his body is ready to go for some opportunities.
Yeah, and I mean, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander kind of like played his way out of trade talks now. So might as well get the cousin, get the consolation prize with Nikhil.
Right. That's such a depressing thought, and I accidentally got into a Twitter argument with somebody who was an OKC fan, but I didn't realize it was an OKC fan because I jokingly said, "Oh, he'll look great in a Raptors uniform," and his reply was, "Well, why would OKC trade their best player?" And then I went on to explain that, well, they're not building a great team around him. And you saw that with the Chet Holmgren and Josh Giddey conversation started to take precedent. Everybody was forgetting about Shai. Mm-hmm. And I kind of angled my argument that way. And we went on and on until I realized that he was an OKC fan. And I had to apologize. I said, yo, it was just a joke. This is just a dream trade for me, but I know that it would be silly for OKC to trade away their best player. But yeah, I think that's for now.
They get very sensitive when Raptors fans attack them about that.
We've developed quite the reputation online. And I don't know if you saw what the Cavs fans were saying about our broadcasters. Oh,
no, what did they say?
No, they were basically saying that how they're just so annoying. Like, I don't need to be taught everything. I just want to watch a basketball game, call the game. They were mad, man.
Oh my gosh! Just listen to it on mute, then, man. Jeez,
yeah,
so miserable.
Right? they hate that we're so happy and we love our players. Jeez, that's such a bad thing as a sports fan, right?
Sorry, we're passionate.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, I think.
But what about you? What do you think?
Oh, trade wise,
yeah,
it's tough because I don't like trading players. I always use Malachi. I'm gonna leave him out of this one.
Thank you.
I think with the abundance of forwards we have and the pseudo center lineups we've been throwing out there, I think someone like Kem Birch is a little bit more expendable than he would be a couple years ago, especially that Tampa year. He was really, like you mentioned, he was very, very effective for us in that run. I would have to move on from him. I know he has 2 more years on his deal too. I don't see long-term fit as far as him making a name for himself to get us another contract down the road, a decent sized contract. I think would be good to get him out there to, let's say, a Chicago. Get him out there. They need some more physicality in that front court. He could provide some of that Taj Gibson feel that they had, where that guy comes in hardworking, get those rebounds. And I would try and get back Kobe White. I try and get that combo guard. He's kind of sitting there. They have a lot of guards there. I know there's a lot of injuries, but Kobe White seems like a guy that they're not going to re-sign. I don't see why he would resign there anyway. I think he might be restricted, but he has $7 million left, one year left on his deal. I think it would be a good audition to bring him over on the Raptors, see what he can do, if he could be the offensive spark, get them their big man that they need. I think Drummond, I don't know if Drummond's back yet, but they still need some depth behind Vucevic.
I think he did come back last night and he threw up a double-double in their win.
Okay, so it would be good to get a little bit more insurance with Kem. Because they have abundance of guards who are not going to get the shine they need. So I think that would be a decent swap. Kobe White for Kem Birch. Both teams are happy. Both players are happy. I think that's the way to go.
I absolutely love that. And that was actually one of the ones I was looking at. But then when I was looking at their depth chart, yes, they do have a lot of guards, but they don't have anybody that can do what Kobe White does. I know they're leaning on Dosunmu quite a bit, but he's not the shooter that Kobe White is, and that's something that Chicago has really struggled with from the outside. But I definitely love that. I think Kobe White is exactly what we need, somebody that is just going to go out there and get you buckets, and that's going to push the tempo and keep pressure on them. He's not a great playmaker, but that's why you have those point forwards on our team to kind of take that responsibility away from him. And he'll be able to play more off ball. But yeah, I absolutely love that. You can't go wrong with either one. The question is, does the front office believe that? I think there's such a stubbornness when it comes to this front office. While they are great, you can't argue with the end result. But I want to ask this question. Do you feel that there's such a stronger emphasis on just defense that they kind of shy away from looking at the players that can give you that, as you mentioned, that highlight reel play? Because I feel like at times we do need a player that's going to step out of that mold and take a little bit more risks. I feel that at times the Raptors are too safe, and that having somebody that believes in their ability, like a Kobe White, to shoot it from the perimeter, like Alexander Walker, who believes that he can be a better player, to have somebody kind of stick out like a sore thumb, as they say. Would you find like the Raptors can benefit from a player like that?
Most definitely. I think their whole strategy, or at least Nick Nurse's, where he gets comfortable with putting players in the game, is if they are game managers, where he can just know the bare minimum what they're going to do. He doesn't like inconsistencies, but I think sometimes you need that one guy who can give you that 30-point game here or there, because you're going to need it. And we've seen it throughout the season that a couple of these losses that we had, if we had that guy who's just going to go out there and say, no, I don't want to be down by 7. Let me jack up some shots. Let me create for my teammates. Let me not shy away from the moment. Those things, I don't think they put a lot of weight to as the Raptors. And they have a lot of players that could just do the bare minimum. And I think they should. I think they at least need one piece, one guy like a Kobe White or whoever can score. Just need that one piece that they can throw in, and he's a wild card and try and pull out some victories.
And a player like that, I feel, would really fit the Raptors mold, because one of the luxuries that we have is that on any given night, anybody can go off, anybody can have a great game. And obviously, top 5 Pascal seems to be more consistent in that area, but if he's having an off night, OG can go off, Scotty can go off, Gary Trent can go off. We've seen Freddie drop 30 points on multiple occasions. And having that other player where, as an opposing team, you don't know how to game plan for anybody, a player, that wild card, can fit right into that and quite possibly be part of the closing lineup. Imagine having 5 players on the floor that can keep pressure on the defense on a consistent basis. Like, they always have to be on their toes. And, we've seen it at times that sometimes OG can be a little passive. Scotty Barnes can be a little passive. Even Gary Trent Jr. I think he's struggling a little bit with his confidence, though in other moments he doesn't seem like he's struggling at all. He's jacking him up, shooting 1 for 10 anyways. But having somebody else that can do that as well, that's not going to have his confidence wavered, can kind of fill those gaps when those problems arise.
That's a good point. Even with the scoring guard, the dynamic they would bring is someone who's going to get into the high post area and try and score, as opposed to getting into that area and trying to pass. Because sooner or later, especially in the playoffs, teams are going to be ready for that. They're going to be ready for Thad Young to go up there, and they're going to find the areas that he likes to target and shut that down. And it's going to slow us down. And we have a tendency, at least late in games, late in halves, I should say, is we slow down too much. And then at the end of there's be like 10, 12 seconds on the clock, and we're just scrambling to get some type of offensive set going, and then we just put up a bad shot. If we can get a guy who's going to see that clock and just be, okay, boom, 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 3 moves, and he's in the paint, I think that's what we need, just that spark plug.
Yeah, no, and having that spark plug fits right in with a Chris Boucher, a Precious Achiuwa. Those guys have been the spark plug when healthy. And adding another player like that can match their energy, which is very difficult to do. I don't know if there's a player on the roster right now that can give us that spark instantaneously. Maybe that's Juancho now. Maybe it's Thad Young. But like you said, there are limitations with those players. So let's lean on the player that can do those things and not ask Chris Boucher to turn into Kevin Durant in the half court. You know what I mean? Though it has looked good at times, taking it off the dribble has looked good, but asking him to do that on a consistent basis is not very realistic. So let's allow those players to do what they do, and let's get a player to do what they do, and that is to get a bucket, especially in the playoffs when we need it most.
And also, I think another piece that we need, and I understand that we can't get two. That's not can't, but it'll be difficult to shake up the roster that much. Is just a 7-footer. It's a big body end of bench guy. I think at times Christian Koloko looks overmatched. I think he's not mentally ready to guard bigs in this NBA yet. He's a great help defender, but I've seen him contest shots and lean forward, fouling. I've seen him get caught on switches sometimes, and he just doesn't know which area to go to. I think a little bit more time in the 905. Clean off his, awareness and IQ, and he'll be good in next year or so. So getting a veteran big, I always thought someone like Serge Ibaka would be perfect for Christian Koloko to learn from. Imagine Serge being his mentor throughout the year.
I agree. I was very disappointed that the Raptors weren't able to pry him away from Milwaukee. But yeah, I agree with you 100%. I think Serge Ibaka would be more suitable. He would kind of fit that Kem Birch role right now perfectly. And he's giving you the consistent shot blocking, not to mention the ability to shoot from the mid-range and stretch it out. Like it's not uncommon, and he's familiar with the system. I think he would be absolutely great for that. But in terms of Christian Koloko, I know it hurts for you to be talking about your son like that. It's unfortunate because you saw the flashes earlier on, all those things that you alluded to before the draft, way before the draft. You saw a lot of it, and even I was coming around and saying, okay, you know what, it's going to be hard for the Raptors to send him down to the 905. But I think it kind of falls into that category of he's an unfamiliar player, and that a lot of teams didn't know what he can bring. So there was that little window where it's like, oh, okay, he can finish around the rim. Oh, he can shoot it a little bit, and he's a great help side defender. What can we do to neutralize all his strengths? And you see that now. You put a body on him. He can't match the physicality. And I think for me, the more frustrating point on the defensive side is that he's not trusting himself physically. Mm-hmm. Like he has that long wingspan. You're over 7 foot. You don't need to extend yourself any further. Just play straight up. And I think that comes along with the experience. And I think he's destined for a 905 stint. It's very hard to keep him on the floor now. He gets into foul trouble very quickly. And you can tell after that first quick foul when he gets in, you can see it in his eyes, like he's not as engaged, and it really affects him. He's really overthinking things, but it comes along with being a young player in this league, and especially a young big, which is not very common these days. So he's a little bit on an island by himself. But I think going to the 905, playing with competition more on his level, the confidence will develop, and we've seen what the Raptors are able to do in the 905. Pascal, Boucher, Freddie, Norm, and so on. Mm-hmm. I think it'll be great for him, but right now it's a bit of a struggle.
I mean, this is the nature of getting a young big. There is there's barely any centers that come into the league that are defensive minded that just come in and just take over. Robert Williams took some time to engage himself as a potent defensive center. Embiid, well, he was injured his first year. And I can just go down the list. If they're not offensively skilled, it's going to be hard for them to stay in the game without fouling. And that's what we're seeing with Koloko. It's going to take time. By year 3, he's going to be a really, really important piece to this team. But yeah, we're just going through the growing pains. So it is what it is.
For sure. I think one area that I think that would make all the difference and kind of offset the foul trouble is his ability to get off the floor when he gets the ball underneath the rim.
Yeah.
He has a very slow gather.
He's thinking too much.
he's thinking too much, and it's like, dude, come on, man, you 7 foot, like go up strong. You may not have the strength, but
Just
go up
go up.
strong, and try to finish over top of somebody. You have that long wingspan, and put it to good use. And we've seen many times where he would catch the lob rather than finishing the lob, and he's like right at the rim, and he ends up getting fouled, and then the pressure that come with free throws. So mind you, sometimes he's hitting 3 for 6 or 4 for 6, but maybe those free throws can be 1 for 1 or 1 for 2 coming off of N1s with him finishing around the rim and getting off the floor quicker. But I guess it kind of coincides with what we're talking about, that confidence, right?
And I think his teammates are on him about that. I watched Hustle Play. Have you watched that episode with Chris Boucher and Koloko?
No, I haven't. No,
Yeah,
it's in my rotation.
Yeah, and he was talking to him like saying like, you're 7 foot, just dunk it. Don't worry about nothing, just dunk it. And I think eventually it's gonna clue into him that, okay, I can be this guy. I can be this dominant force that finishes around the rim. And yeah, again, like I said, it's gonna take some time. But yeah, anything else you wanted to bring up about the Raptors or the NBA?
I wasn't really prepared for that question. I guess one thing we can talk about is there, now I know we talk about Shai as being that dream trade for the Raptors, and rightfully so. Even Giannis possibly coming here. I don't think that agenda is completely over. But is there a player right now that is more of a realistic get that we haven't talked about that you can see fitting into this rotation?
That's not a superstar?
That's not a superstar. I'm talking about, mid-level type of player, possibly rotational piece. Is there a player that really comes to mind? Because I have one in mind.
I have a bunch. Like, I always find myself watching like games around the league. I'm like, that guy would be good on the Raptors, man. And the guy who always pops up is Josh Hart.
Yeah.
I think his rebounding, his mentality, his just whole demeanor says Toronto Raptors. I don't know.
He's fearless.
Yeah, and I think eventually he's gonna be one of those guys like Thad Young, where throughout the years you're like, oh, why can't we get Thad? Why can't we? And we just end up getting him when he's in his late 30s or mid to late 30s. I think that's what's gonna happen with Josh Hart. So if we can get someone like that now, he'd be a great piece. Now we're trying to turn Champagne into that type of player, but again, the minutes are not there for him right now. So who are you thinking?
Well, I'm only playing up to the rumors, but I think Sadiq Bey would be an intriguing piece for the Raptors. Why Detroit has him on the trading block, or quite possibly as an expendable piece, is very interesting to me, especially when before Cade Cunningham, he was getting buckets, dropping 25, 30 points. Like, he was going off, not to mention being a pest on defense. He's 6'7", has that wingspan, looks like a Raptor type of player. But if there's anybody that the Raptors should have at the top of their bulletin board, I think it's Sadiq Bey, man. What do you think?
I would love that pick. Like, again, he brings that scoring aspect. He has the height, like you said. He has the mentality. I seen him in that rookie game, the rookie sophomore game. He was locked in as much as Precious was.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that would be crazy. I don't know what's his contract looking like.
I think it's 2 years, around 2.8.
Okay, so if you're gonna do that, you probably have to give him Flynn and like 2 protected picks. They're not gonna give him up that easy.
No, I know,
Yeah,
but I just find it interesting that he's part of that group of being an expendable player, and it's like, he's exactly what you need with the Jaden Ivey and a Cade Cunningham. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So why would you? Yeah, that's interesting. That is an interesting pickup. I like that. I'm putting it through the trade machine right now. See what I could do. Hold on. Did you have a trade in mind? Yeah, for City.
So yeah, it would have to be the smaller contracts and a couple picks with, like, the Malachi and the Birch. Whether they would bite on that, I don't know. But here's an intriguing trade that I was kind of tinkering with. So money is an issue for the Raptors going forward, as they have to sign a bunch of players. But in Detroit's case, you just gave a big contract to Boyan for whatever reason. Get rid of that contract, package him with Sadiq, and it pains me to say this. I take no joy into it, but for contract purposes, it makes sense. You send Gary Trent there, possibly with a pick, maybe even two. But I think if you're getting Gary Trent back, you can lessen that pick package and maybe just send one. But contractually, it makes sense. You lock up a great shooter who's older, who probably won't be opposed to coming off the bench with less responsibility because he's taking a heavy workload for the Pistons right now ever since Cade Cunningham went down, and hopefully he comes back soon for them. But then you get Sadiq Bey as a luxury at a cheap cost. I think that would work out amazing for both sides. What do you think about that?
That would be an epic pickup. I think Gary and him are the same age, if not close. That would be interesting. Yeah, I like that. I like that deal. I don't think Dwayne Casey would want to do any business with
no. Like, obviously this is just fantasy talk, but it works.
Yeah.
They still get a killer. They get a young killer, somebody that I guess in comparison to Sadiq Bey, in their eyes, a little bit more proven. Somebody that can just play within the offense. I think maybe there's a battle of pecking order, which is why he's probably considered to be on the trading block with Cade and Jaden. There's not enough basketball to go around, so he's kind of becoming the odd man out, and especially the way that Boyan has been shooting for them all season, he might be that odd man out. So let the Raptors kind of swoop in there and get somebody that fits the mold.
That'd be interesting. I think the Raptors would probably try and jump in and get Nerlens Noel on top of that too.
I thought about that, but I'm like, man, do we need another big? Do we actually need another forward?
Probably not.
We have so much.
The shot blocking would be cool, but yes,
you're
Sadiq.
right.
So Sadiq would be a nice pickup. So yeah. So I think we're winding down this episode. Anything you want to plug for the week or for the near future?
Well, first and foremost, thank you, Mac. It's been a long time. I'm happy to be back. Happy that you're back. More importantly, we need that content. The streets are waiting, bro. The streets are waiting. We need you out there. I know life is a little hectic, but you're missed. So I definitely hope to see more of you in the very near future, and I know you're going to make that happen. As for me, I've been having fun with the reaction pods. Gotta get you on. Definitely a lot of interesting topics to talk about, as you can tell, with the Raptors right now. So there is going to be some more episodes, a little bit more of a banter pod, not just a reaction. But yeah, check it out at Live by the 3. You can find me on Instagram at Live by the _3, and I'm officially on Twitter. I think I'm already at 1,000 tweets. Nice. And I think I just signed up a couple of months ago. So I'm on it heavy. Give me a follow at Live by the 03. And yeah, be on the lookout. The podcast is available on all platforms. So please check it out.
All right. And thank you for joining me as always. And to anyone, just leave comments below. Let me know what you guys think about the topics we covered. Until next time, please remember to like, subscribe, and raise the vibe. Peace.